turn cameras on, or it kind of turns them both off, both your audio and your camera off at the same time. Let's see if we can get everybody on here as folks are rolling in.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, for some reason it just has a mic option. My camera option went away.
Do you see at the very top bar, there's a little camera icon? Oh, there you go. Nice. Okay, and Josh is coming in too, and folks are coming over from last session. Cool. Okay, we'll give folks a few minutes, and then we're going to get started. I'm really excited about this.
So many people.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can.
All right, cool. How's it going?
Nice. Good. This is our first panel that we've had with multiple people on the session, so it's really awesome. Okay, cool. I'm going to give folks just a few more minutes to come over because folks were just finishing getting their Q&A from that last session. Perfect. For folks who are joining, jump in the chat and tell us your name and what city you're in so we know who we're talking to. It's kind of crazy for us because you can see us, but we can't see you. So it's helpful for us to know who we're talking to as well. Okay, cool. Lisa's in Seattle. Oh my goodness. I love Seattle. It's one of my favorite cities. Haley's in Grand Rapids. Whitney's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Cool.
Yeah, all over the place.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Dan loves the Grand Rapids. So he's in Hayward. Nice.
Oh, Baltimore. There we go.
Mike, what city are you in right now?
I'm in Philadelphia right now, but I'm originally from Baltimore.
Nice. St. Louis. Cool. Nice. Lisa's in Houston. Awesome. Also, tell me if you guys can see 4 people. Do we still have Josh here? Oh, he's coming back. Okay, it'll adjust. Okay, you can see. Now you can see 4. You should be able to see 4 people. Great. Okay. To keep us on time, we're going to get started. I'm really excited about this panel because who I have here are 3 unique entrepreneurs who have done really awesome things building their companies and launching their companies without all of the extra kind of tech bells and whistles and have made it work for them. So what I want to do is have each of you guys maybe just introduce yourselves, tell us your name and your company and kind of what you do, and just kind of high level what your experience has been building your companies and without, a ton of code. Mike, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, I can kick us off. So, hey everyone, my name is Mike Wilner. So 3 years ago, I launched a company called Compass. I did that as a non-technical founder myself. It was a freelance web design marketplace. So we had a network of freelance web designers and we connected them with business owners who needed websites and facilitated the projects. So I started it with another co-founder who was also not technical. So we built it up using spreadsheets and Zapier and a bunch of other tools to basically fake a marketplace. And we use that to then raise money and attract a real live technical co-founder who joined the team and then actually built some, wrote some real code. So that's kind of how I started Compass. And then in 2017, we launched a new product called Sale, which is a billing and payments product for freelancers. Now, that product was a little bit more technical, and from the jump, my technical co-founder built that product. But what I did as a non-technical founder there is I built some of the features that we were thinking about, but didn't yet have total validation on with spreadsheets and no code. So, a couple of months ago, I created a freelance tax calculator for freelancers, which was basically a glorified spreadsheet, which had like kind of a pretty Excel UI. But so I launched that as a standalone product in order to test out some of the features that we were looking to build into the product itself. So I basically, with Compass, used no code to fake a product. and that ended up turning into a real product. And then with Sail, I used basically building apps without code as a way to prototype certain features and get real users to use those features and get value out of it in order to see if it was something that we should write code for. So that's my experience with writing apps without code or building apps without code, and how it kind of related to the two companies.
Yeah, nice. Okay, really good. Brittany, do you want to tell us about yourself and your company and how you've gone about building things without code?
Yeah. Hi, guys. My name is Brittany Gerald. I'm founder of Mobidocs Health Technologies, and we make it easy for pharmaceutical companies to report their data to the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. So I actually started my company a couple of years ago with a different idea, and I went the route of trying to find a technical co-founder. Then I paid developers in Poland, and then I paid developers in India. So about $30,000 later, I still had nothing. So when I heard about Terra and the apps without code, I said, okay, this is what I need to do. And I have probably in the last 6 months completed so much more than I have in the last 3 years. I'm building the application with Bubble, using Zapier, AppSheet, and I'm currently talking to 2 customers who will be signing on to use my application shortly.
So cool. And so you're talking to these like larger organizations and end up being kind of large contracts for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Nice. Okay, Josh, you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Head. I am a producer and songwriter, and I spend a lot of time working and doing camps. Our company, Head Straight Entertainment, has camps and after-school programs where we work with kids in a variety of cities of the East Coast. We're located in Virginia, but we're expanding to outside of the state. So we've been doing camps in person, and we teach kids about the music industry, and we work with producers and artists and help them record music. And we work with young kids as well. So our experience has been, we needed something that was remote, that would allow people to log in remotely. However, we wanted to add some cool elements to it. So we created an app called, I created an app called Groove Coders is the name of it. And our first version was basically a app that we used on the Thinkific platform, which basically allows you to create courses, upload videos, make a quiz. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and that's worked really well. We had organizations at 5 or 6 different sites that we do camps and programs for. They signed up, and so we had a lot of users, but there were functionalities and quite a few things that were limiting us. We also have to work with non-trained technical people and non-trained musicians, usually camp instructors and things of that nature that don't have a music background. So that's where the Groove Coders comes in. Our app allows you to log in, the students can learn, but it also teaches them interactive things about how to do music production, how to write songs. They can code their own, make code for their own beats. So it's a really cool application that we created. And that was using the platform Bubble. It's much more involved. It has a project management part where a kid in Philly can collaborate with a kid in Virginia, and they can create music and do interactive things.
Got it. So I'm hearing you guys talk about like first of all, very different industries that everyone is in, which is awesome to see how you guys are making this work for you. What would you say is the hardest part about building your company? I won't even just narrow it to apps, like building your company as a non-technical entrepreneur. Like, what is the hardest part of this?
I would say for me, you're more accountable because you have the tools to make things work. Before I could say, oh, my developers, they're still working on it. Like, no, it's all me. So just the accountability is a little bit harder, but that's also great because you're in control, because you know what you want your product to look like, who your customers are. So it's also empowering.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, I think just jumping on top of that, the hardest part is not the actually building apps without code. It's more of like the product management that goes into that, right? So understanding who your customers are, what the smallest product is that they need to deliver value. So understanding the scope of what you need to build is really important, and that's what developers face too. Like if you're a technical founder, usually like technical founders just start writing code anyway, but the problem is the same, is understanding what is the smallest minimum viable product that you can build that deliver sufficient value. So even though, it takes us less time than say a technical co-founder or a technical founder, using some of these tools, you run into some of the similar things with needing to know just what to build.
So, Mike, I happen to know that you're a really awesome product manager. So can you walk us through what is product management, and can you kind of share some of the things you've done to manage that whole process?
Yeah. I think it's everything from, especially as a founder, it starts with marketing and understanding who your customers are and what pain points they have. And then the product management side of that is just understanding what they actually need a product to do in order to basically solve that problem for them. Using different frameworks, one framework I really like that I encourage everyone to look up is the jobs to be done framework. So understanding, what job a user or a client is hiring your product to do, and then ensuring that it delivers on that job that they're hiring it to do. So
I've never heard that before. That sounds
it's a really good framework. And so just being super clear about that, because one thing that's super easy to do, whether you're technical or not, is start building features just because they look cool. And being able to be rigorous in understanding, tying everything back to the customer's need, and making sure that every feature that you're building is tied to why they want to use your product in the first place is really important. So when I talk about product management, it's just about that. It's making the connection between your customers, what they need, what they're willing to pay for, and prioritizing features based on that, and then making sure what you're building connects to those things effectively.
So this question is for everyone in the panel. How do you make sure that you're building things that people are willing to pay for? How have you guys gone about that? How do you think about that?
That's been easy. Well, not easy. That's been something that I've had to deal with, because we built our app based off of the need. So it wasn't we didn't build the idea and say, maybe will people buy it? We already had customers. We already had a client base, and we already had some challenges technically with that client base. So for us, what we did was we worked backwards, where we began with what exactly is best for the client, what is easiest for the client. For example, we are working with, on average, if you go to a community center or a school, these people, they don't know how to record music. They're not producers. They don't know anything about the music industry. Even if they're music teachers, they don't know anything about this kind of stuff. So they really don't. So what we were trying to do is think, okay, what is the easiest way for our platform to do the teaching for them without, your token, anyone can go to YouTube and press a video. But real interaction, like what we put on our app, is where kids actually learn terms. They have to type in certain things. They have drop down, and then it leads them to another place of interaction. We have draggable elements. We have fill in the blanks. We have not just quizzes, but it also it rewards them. There's pop-ups where it can play tracks. So we really wanted to make this something that was very interactive, but not hard to use. And so I would say we were thinking of the customer. We were thinking of the non-technical, non-trained musician teacher. We were thinking of the non-trained student who wouldn't know anything about what we were doing. And we built the features specific to that.
Got it. So what would you say were some of the prerequisites for being able to launch whatever it was that you guys were each prospectively building? Was there a certain mindset that you had to have in order for this to work? Was there a certain set of experiences you had to have before? What are the prerequisites here? Because you guys have all kind of jumped into this and made it happen really quickly for yourselves. What are the prerequisites for making this work?
For me, it's really knowing your customer and knowing what they want and getting that customer feedback. That I've had when I have conversations with my customers, they tell me what they want. And so when you go to build, it's pretty easy. But having that idea in mind of who your customer is really important, because that'll help guide you along the way. That make sure you're building for what someone wants to pay for, and not just what you think would work.
Got it.
Yeah, I think on top of that too, as a non-technical founder building something without code, it's not going to have the same polish as an app that a huge engineering team builds. So you have to be comfortable with almost selling first and building it later, or selling something that may be a little rough around the edges. And that gets back to knowing your customer well. I think one thing that I like about non-technical founders is usually they're connecting a lot more with customer pain points, because whatever product they're building has to be so good that, like, even though it's not pretty, it still is something that people really want to use. So it's solving real pains. So like, and that gets back to your last question too. Like, we sold our service before we like had anything built. Right. So, and I think you kind of have license to do that when you're non-technical, because you're probably solving a really important pain point. So there's also a big difference between someone saying they would use something and then putting their credit card down. Those are two very different things. And so to be able to sell first, build later, it takes it's like kind of uncomfortable because you don't really have anything yet. But I do think that's kind of a prerequisite, is being willing to like sell something that's rough around the edges, or even sell something that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
I would
Oh yeah, go for it.
I would just say that for us, it was a lot of fun, because sometimes there's that fear of trying to sell something to someone. And, you know, in the back of your head, it's like, are they going to actually pay for this? You know, that kind of thing. What we found was we just talked a lot about it. And the more people heard about it, like, they wanted to. And I know that might sound strange to you, like, yeah, right, someone's not going to just start giving me money. But honestly, what we had weird stuff happen, like with some of the school partners and that, as we talked it up, we had someone go and find some funding to help with what we were doing. This was not like a GoFundMe. This is like word of mouth. We were showing them, we were saying, this is what we want to do. So we're working on, will you try it? Will you, you know, while we're building it, it might not be perfect. And they were like, cool, cool, cool. And then next thing you know, a month later, after the kids were trying it and they were getting into it, then one of the leaders was like, well, you know, we found some money that'll kind of help you if you want to do more of this. So I'm like, all right, cool. So my point in that is that you'd be surprised how people want to be a part of something on the ground level. They want to be part of something that's new, especially if it's innovative and different. And most of us are very creative people. And I'm not talking about the three of us. I'm talking about everyone on this web conference. I know everyone here is very creative, and you can think of something that can help other people. And so if you just do that and just don't be afraid to jump out there, don't be afraid of it to not look perfect. Just go out there. And then if it doesn't do what you need to do, you know, just tell them you're going to work on it, and they'll work with you. You know, this is their 10th iPhone, so I'll leave that one alone.
So you're saying that you had your first version of your product, you were sharing it with your clients, and your client said, we found some funding to help you do some more of this.
Yes.
So they gave you money to continue doing more.
Yes.
Did they ask for ownership? Like, how did that work?
No, it basically, because they know that we're providing, because in our case, we're providing a service. So that service is what we've already been providing. So we were telling them, you know, we're building this app, and this app is going to help us do more. So they didn't say, well, we'll give you money for your app. It was more like, well, we have some money to keep you around to do more time, and we can use it for that. So it was more that kind of thing. But the thinking behind it is that they wanted to be a part of what we're doing.
That's awesome. That's like ideal scenario for an entrepreneur. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay, cool. So there are a couple of questions in here, and I want to kind of talk to you guys about this question specifically, which is, you know, you go out and you want to find customers and only give things to customers that only build things that your customers are asking for. And so there's a question about, you know, how do you figure out if you talk to a customer and the customer is just not a right fit for you, versus you kind of changing what you're going to build for that customer, if that makes sense, right? There's a difference between a customer being a totally bad fit and a customer who's like, oh, but I need this feature. Can you build this for me? How do you kind of manage those decisions? Mike, I want to kick off with you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's something that a lot of people struggle with. So I think you have to initially have a really good sense of who your customer is and the pain points that you're trying to solve for them. Like, you might find that someone that you thought was your ideal customer asks for something like that, and you realize that they no longer fit the profile that you thought they fit in, right? So one thing that can be very dangerous, unless you're selling to like enterprises, is building for a single user, right? If you're selling to like a very large company, that's great, because like a single user can be worth a lot. But if you're trying to build something that a lot of people will use, building for a single user is not great. So like if you have an initial cohort of people that you think are in your like ideal market segment, and someone says something like that, Tara, where like, oh, can you build this one other thing? You really want to make sure that that's something that everyone else wants before going and chasing that shiny object.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd say about that is like when you're building for a group of users, what you're building should be as small as possible. So if you identify like, okay, this is the smallest minimum viable product that we should be building to deliver on, you know, this pain point, and someone asks for another feature, that's a good reason why you should be building something super small, because if they're asking you to solve a completely different problem, then that's like a different product. So it's important to be clear on like, are you building smaller features that are based on the product that you're trying to build, or are people actually asking for things that are just entirely different? So, yeah.
There's another question that says, so if you're laser sharp and have built the perfect app for a small group of people, how do these people find the app that you've built? Like, how do they, know that you have a solution? I want to ask you guys, how have you found the customers for your companies? Like, where do they come from?
So I've been a little bit lucky because I work in the industry where I'm building a product for, so I kind of have that connections, but also a lot of people don't realize there's LinkedIn profiles, there's also LinkedIn groups, and in those groups, those are discussions. So I've been able to find additional customers and people to reach out to by listening to who's complaining about their current pain points. So that's a good way, especially if you're enterprise going B2B, that's a good way to see who would be interested in a topic or what your problem you're solving. And that's definitely worked great for me.
Yeah.
I would say don't overlook, just because our platform that we made is an app, which is, online, and, we do web conferences. They're all great. But everyone has a city that they are in and their surrounding areas. For example, there are 7 cities surrounding where I am. There are 2 million people within 45 miles. So even though I could do a lot on, just trying to find people online, it really helps the face-to-face. And if you're going to do, in our case, we do business to business. If I have one sale, I might have, 100 people that I reach through the one business client. So if I reach 10 people that are my core audience and they have 100, users, that's 1,000 people. So I just want to encourage everyone to not overlook face-to-face selling. Even though this is it is an app, it is something that will be downloaded. That doesn't mean you have to sell that way. You can go to real people and go in your immediate area, I would suggest.
Yeah,
Josh,
I agree.
how have you found, I'm sorry, just really quickly, I wanted to ask Josh this question. How have you found your customers for your business? Like, how do you find the schools, for example, or the programs that are interested?
The irony of a lot of what has happened with us has been word of mouth. However, we're very active. We perform. We're out in the community. So I'm in a lot of community events. I do a lot of community speaking, interact with radio, and, we work with the music industry as well. So we have events. So at our events, or when I'm out helping someone else's event, then I'll kind of network with that person. And then that will turn into, a meeting or something of that nature. But it's been mostly from us, performing or doing an event, doing a camp, or at someone else's event where we'll, speak, or we'll do some type of presentation. And then we network and find people and we follow up afterwards.
Got it. So I'm hearing networking events from Josh. From Brittany, I'm hearing, leveraging the network of like past coworkers, essentially, that you have had in the industry, and also LinkedIn. Mike, what about you? How did you find customers for Compass?
Yeah, I think it depends on to answer the question, it depends on what stage you're at, right? Like Tara, when you're really trying to scale something, Facebook ads make a lot of sense. But when you have 0 customers, Facebook ads make no sense, right? So I think especially if you're looking for your first customer or your first couple of customers, like Josh said, good old fashioned hand-to-hand combat is like the best way. It's also going to give you a lot of feedback on the product, right? Because if they're saying no, you want them to say that to your face and you want to ask why. Whereas if you're like driving someone to a landing page and they're not converting, you have no idea why, right? So I think early on, hand-to-hand combat, that's how we did it with Compass. It was just like, talking to friends, asking if they knew anyone, like any family members or friends that needed our product, and really just having as many conversations as we could, and learning a lot about, how our marketing messaging was resonating. Because it might be your product is not right. It might be your marketing messaging is not right. It might be a lot of different things. And you can't really know unless you're having like a one-on-one conversation. So I think in the earliest stages, that's really important. And then as you start to grow and need to find like other distribution channels, that's when you can get into like tapping into existing communities like LinkedIn groups. It really depends on what your product is, right? If you're doing something that's B2B, doing a lot of networking and building your own thought leadership, like Josh has, is a really good one. So kind of depends on stage, but at the very earliest stages, if you don't have anyone, I think you just need to talk to humans.
Mike, would you call Compass a consumer product or a B2B product, or an SMB for small businesses?
Yeah, it's tricky because like the lower end of the SMB space is like, you deal with a lot of individual business owners, which is almost like kind of B2C, right? So like we were dealing a lot with people that were both the like business owner and decision maker. So in that way, it was kind of B2C, right? So I think even if you are doing a B2C product, if you don't have any users or customers yet, hand-to-hand combat still makes sense, right? When you're B2B, if you're selling to an organization that has multiple stakeholders and decision makers, and you have to deal with those politics, then you definitely need to do hand-to-hand combat to learn what those dynamics look like. So I'd say like even in both situations, if you're starting at zero, talking to people is the best way.
So Joanne has a question in the chat. She says, what were the top 3 tools that you used most to build your apps that code? This is for all of you guys.
My second version was Bubble, because that Bubble has a lot of very specific, make the button, put the image on the page, create the button to go to this page. You can be extremely specific with Bubble. That is the most recent for our version 2. Our version 1 was Thinkific, which was very quick for us. You log in, they already have pre-made templated lessons, just throw the video up there, add in a quiz, and then I think they have a chat on there. I'm not sure, I haven't used it, but they have some functions. It's kind of like the pre-built, launch it tomorrow, and try to get some people. They have a part where you can pay. So those are, and then obviously with us music, we own our own licensing of our music library. So the tracks that the kids get to use, that's in our library. So we created the tracks using our music software.
Got it. So the music software you're using and Thinkific for version 1, and then for version 2, Bubble.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. What about the rest of you?
Yeah, so I'm a little advanced starting out. So my version 1, I'm using Bubble, AppSheet for the analytics, my database, and also Zapier.
Got it. Bubble, AppSheet, Zapier. Got it. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, for me, it's Google Sheets, which is like one of the most powerful things ever, especially with what you can add on to it. Blockspring is a really cool add-on to Google Sheets, which has a bunch of different commands that connect to a bunch of different apps that can make you do all crazy types of things with Google Sheets. And then with Zapier, obviously, you can do, you can add in SMS notifications, automated emails, all of that. So like with those 3 tools combined, you can basically do any like fake backend stuff that you would need to do for any kind of app. Those 3 things don't result in a very good front end experience. But in terms of like any types of functionality and business logic, you can accomplish it with those 3 things.
Mike, what's the difference between front end and back end for folks who don't know? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So like Bubble is really good because it provides a comprehensive user experience. So that's like the front end. Someone can engage with it, and it has like a user interface where you can click different things and really have that experience. When I talk about back end and Google Sheets and all those tools, that's just like certain logic that's happening that someone might not see. So if I need someone to click something on a website and have their entries go into a Google Sheet, and then I need to kind of process certain logic to determine what kind of notification to send them. They're not seeing any of that. So that's all happening on the back end. So any type of complex logic like that, if you're building a marketplace or have any type of like queuing system where you're queuing up jobs, that is, a user is not going to see any of that. And that's where things like Google Sheets are really valuable.
Got it. And I think this might tie into this question from Lisa. So she's saying, to what interface do you link your spreadsheet to put it in the hands of your users? So you've got your spreadsheet kind of working in the background. Do you use something like Sketch to deploy? Like, how do you get something, if you're doing this kind of invisible app that you're creating, how do you get something that's in the back end to the front end? This is probably specifically for Mike.
Yeah. So specifically with the tax calculator that I made, basically I created like one sheet in the Google Sheet, which was actually kind of like an interface where people were allowed to control different things.
Can you show this? Do you happen to have it?
Yeah, I can show you a screenshot that'll
Yeah.
maybe, let me just show you really quickly. 1 second. Let me see if I can pull this up here. Can you see this?
I cannot. Oh wait, it's coming. It's coming. It's loading up. I can see it. Can you guys in the community and everybody watching see this?
Yeah, I see it.
Cool. So like this is the tax calculator that I built. So it kind of doesn't look that nice. I know that, but this is a Google Sheet, right? And I just kind of styled it a certain way. But people can play around with these green inputs here. And then there's a ton of stuff going on in the hidden sheets that no one can see that populates everything you see on the right here. So in this case, I used Google Sheets or Excel as the front end too. It's a little more challenging if you wanted to, have something like a Google Sheet and then have an interface that people can interact with that's separate. An example would be like if you had a type form that was connected to a Google Sheet where you were doing a bunch of stuff and then you sent someone a report back. That's kind of like a hacked together version, but it's very difficult to have a Google Sheet that is doing stuff that can feed information to people in real time unless you're actually in the Google Sheet, which is how I did it.
Yeah. There's another question, which says idea first, customer second, MVP third. I got all that. But when should I consider legal and accounting stuff? When have you guys kind of covered this a little bit? Where are you and how you think about and when you think about legal and accounting stuff? That's a good
You're talking about, just to make sure I'm clear, you're talking about like for your accounting for your business and all of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I would highly suggest on the front end. I do, because sometimes we don't think because it's a small beginning and we don't have a lot of customers. I think from the beginning, having at least, and there are a lot of bookkeeping services out there. There are a lot of online services. A lot of the banks have partnerships with someone who helps with bookkeeping as it relates to a service. So I would get on that part quickly. And then as it relates to the legal, I think that's important too, because I think I heard one of the two talk about having a partner. So if you're talking about having a partner or partnering with other people, once money starts coming in, people get very interesting. And I've done a lot of like profit share type stuff in that, but you'd be surprised. And even with the legal side, there are a lot of lawyers who will just do things for a flat fee. So just have some of your terms, your agreements. You can always agree on something that has a limitation. For example, we could do something where there's profit sharing, but we could say only for a year. At the end of the year, we'll renegotiate, et cetera. So there are a lot of things that your accounting and legal people, they just know what they're doing. And you'll sleep much better, more peace of mind, just knowing, because it's something that bothers all of us. And you don't want to wait till you start making, 20 and 50 and 70 grand. And you're like, wait a minute. Did I do the taxes right? Or, you just don't want to, you don't want to deal with that. You don't want to deal with that.
Got it. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, set yourself up to succeed. The first thing when I had an idea to have a business, I incorporated, got a bank account, just set myself up so that whenever money came along, I had actual, business. So anything you can do at the beginning, like Joshua said, is better than trying to catch up later.
Yeah. One thing I would add is as soon as you have like a business model and are making money, right? For us, we were a marketplace. So until we really figured out how we were taking a piece of the pie, that actually resulted in two very different ways we could go in terms of accounting and legal stuff. And we didn't really know until we proved out the concept and understood, like, are we an agency with subcontractors or are we a marketplace? Like, those are two very different things. But as soon as we kind of knew what we were, then it was like, okay, now we really got to get this together. So usually when you're like starting to make money, is the good time.
So I've got a couple people asking if you guys can maybe share Mike did this already where he shared some visuals of what this tax calculator was. Can either of you guys either walk us through or show us examples of kind of what version 1 looked like, or what kind of you're working on now? I think it'd be helpful for people to see examples of what this stuff looks like when you're in the middle of it.
Okay, I'm going to try to share the screen real quick.
While you're doing that, there's a question in here for Josh around, did you use Bubble and Thinkific at the same time? And did you hire a tech to build up Bubble, or did you do it yourself?
Didn't hire a tech on the Bubble. That was, I'll call that a lot of the drive, because Bubble has a learning curve and I'm still learning. But no, I didn't hire anyone. Just worked kind of consistently, knowing what I wanted to. But I think the in between is what's even more important. Design is really important. So try not to do too much on the building before you do something like Google Slides. And I think that's really important. Do the Google Slides, make your little buttons, make a diagram, things of that nature. And that will help you to kind of see what you want. And if you work with a design firm, they would make you do a storyboard anyway. So, or anyone who's going to build for you. So I would say that, and I used them, like, while I still have my clients using the Thinkific, then I was working on the Bubble, and then I began to let the clients see the Bubble, which got the excitement going. And so that's kind of the process. I think I have this working. Let me know if y'all start to see something.
Takes a little second to load.
Okay, all right. Let me know once you see something on the screen, and then I'll start talking about that. But yeah, that's been my process. Still nothing? Because it said it was sharing.
Let's get started. Let's see.
I'll try it one more time. All right, I think I have it. Let me know if you see it now.
Can you guys see in the chat? Let us know. Maybe
it says loading.
Okay.
Not yet. Yeah.
Give it a second.
Anything?
Darn technology. Okay. Well, walk us through what we would see, and then if we're not able to get it shared, we can maybe kind of take some screenshots afterwards and share it with folks.
Cool. On the Thinkific side, it was more like just a course pages, and it just had a menu of courses, and you would click on the.
Coming now.
Say that one more time.
We can see your screen now.
Oh, cool. You can see it?
Yeah, we can see inside. Yeah, there we go.
Cool.
It came up. You guys see
All
it?
right.
Yep.
All right. So this is the Thinkific one. This is a screenshot of the home screen. So you see we had a DJ course here. Then we had a marketing course here. The Groove Coders component is there. And this is the live mixing, showing them how to mix live and how to record beats. And this is for performance. This picture is cool because this is actually a group of kids that was in our camp. So there's like the front page still from Thinkific. When you click on that individual course, talk about the instructor, and then it would take you in. Here's the live audio front page, And here's the one, with the kids. So once you get to the Thinkific one, it was basically a video player, and it would just be a next, and you hit next and go to the next one, and you would see the video. So it was mostly videos teaching. It would allow you to upload a presentation slideshow. So if you had like a PowerPoint with 15 slides, you can put that up and they can navigate through there. And then you could add quizzes. But those are the three primary functions. I know that they have more functions, but that's all that we were able, to use and get rolling there. So let's move forward to the new one. So here's the Groove Coders front.
Before you move over to this, question for you, Josh.
Yes.
With that first version with Thinkific, you
Yes.
offered it to a school. Did the school pay you for access to this? How did that? Were they already paying you? How did that work?
Yes. So the arrangement previously was that we would go out in person and, work with a group of kids, but it moved forward to this being part of a new interactive program where they could do some distance learning, and then we would train the teachers, or should I say the chaperones, so it's easier to understand when I say teacher, a non-trained music instructor. We would train them on the app, but the content, our curricula is, how to teach them. As you see, this is musical performance and creativity. So you might be at the Boys and Girls Club. They don't know how to do this stuff. So we use this app as the student materials, if you will, and the teacher materials. So they paid us for use of the app. We got it up to 8.
Uh-oh.
No.
We lost Josh for a second. He'll come back. We'll have him back. Okay, while he is away, Brittany, can you kind of talk us through, if there's something you can share, that's fine, but kind of talk us through what people experience in your product.
So just kind of background on kind of what I do. So any prescription drug that comes to the market goes through clinical trials and then is approved. And that's based on the data during the clinical trials. Well, once the drug's approved, data is still collected, and that still has to be reported to the FDA. And so that's what my product does, is help pharmaceutical companies report that data to the FDA. The problem is the way it's received is not the way it can be reported. So we analyze the data and help standardize it, and that's kind of taking place of people manually doing those tasks. So the biggest thing for us is taking the data, and what we kind of do is we kind of organize it for the user and prioritize it for them. So it kind of takes a lot of the work that they have to do out of it. And I can just show a screenshot of kind of what that would look like for them. Oh.
Takes a second. As she's letting that load up, Mike, for you, what about for Compass? Did you have an interface that people could see? Well, let's let Brittany finish because her slides came up and we'll come back to that.
So essentially, this is like the user interface of what the back end of what we've taken. So we've taken all the case information and kind of organized it for them so they can see which cases have priority and what they need to do. If, for example, they could just click on this and then it kind of takes them to the next step. So we've really taken a lot of the onus off of them and just kind of present them with exactly what they need to do, which just helps save so much time and save so much energy on the pharmaceutical company side. And this is really why they're excited, because we're automating and analyzing processes for them that they're now doing manually.
Can you give us a range, Brittany, of how much you would charge a client in a company to use something like this?
So I'm currently, because I have like 2 early customers, so I'm really, really cheap. So right now it's probably around like 10 to 15,000 a month. But once I get maybe version 2 and more customers, I could see myself charging like 50 to 75,000 a month.
I want to like point this out because when Brittany says cheap, when I have conversations with Brittany and she's like, oh yeah, like I've got the trial pricing, it's really low. Low to Brittany is $10,000 to $15,000 a month. So I just want to show right. Like I love this. But I just wanted to have you share that because, right, like you're building something, you've built it yourself. Like, yeah, you've gone through some trials and tribulations of putting money into stuff that hasn't worked. But like you're talking about large contract sizes here. You're talking about real money here. Yeah, people's lives depend on your software. Yeah, absolutely.
I've been hearing yesterday. I feel like I should be charging more.
I love it. Okay, Josh, we got Josh back.
All right, where did it cut out? I didn't know where it cut out.
You were talking about money, and we were talking about when you first took that first Thinkific version and showed it to your customers and had like, how did kind of the financial arrangement work with what you were sharing?
Okay. On the financial arrangement, they basically pay us for the materials as well as we train the teachers. So we train the non-musical teachers. Can you see the screen yet? Let me know if you can see it again.
I think it's coming. We'll give it a minute. So keep talking to it.
Okay. So yeah. So basically we would train them, and then the students, they didn't know about music, and the teachers don't know about music. Even if they did acquire something like that, we teach recording and production. So our content is all on video form, and we have presentations, etc. And so Thinkific was used for that.
Got it. So we talked about this in a couple sessions yesterday about using kind of the Trojan horse of bringing in some services as well, as long as you're tech, and kind of bringing in a full package. Can you give us a rough range, high and low end of what, folks are paying you and your company to do this kind of stuff?
Yeah, it can on the low end, it could be in the ballpark of maybe a few $100s. On the high end, it can be in the ballpark of maybe a few grand per quarter. So, just to give you a number, we've made from the app part of what we do, not the services part. From the app part, we're almost around 30 grand that we've made from the app payment part. But we've made more money from other services that go around, but only from the digital part of what we're doing. So this is definitely a revenue generating endeavor, and I didn't know that it would grow as quickly as it is, and it didn't hurt that we've got some television and radio interviews as well that happened in the process, and it's been really cool. It's been a blessing. So that's a range for you.
Awesome. Okay, and then Josh, we're gonna let your screen load up because you were showing us. You showed us version 1. You were
Yes.
getting ready to show us version 2. We'll let it kind of do its thing for a second. And as we're doing that, Mike, can you kind of share with us for Compass, what was kind of the first interface that people would see? How did that work?
Yeah. So actually, we had what I would refer to as kind of like an invisible app, because a lot of it was email based, right? We wanted to meet our customers where they were and not give them another place to go and provide things. So there were certain things they had to do, like we had type forms they had to fill out on occasion because we were doing web design projects and needed to collect information from them. But a lion's share of our product was with Google Sheets, Streak, which is a CRM that's Gmail based, and with Zapier. So basically we could change the stage of a project and it would trigger a bunch of actions and like auto-populate a bunch of things to send to customers. We had another thing where we needed to do quality assurance on all of our websites. So when designers submitted versions, we had a spreadsheet where it would populate the latest version and it would notify a virtual assistant to go and run like a QA check. And once it would pass, it would then send the version to the client. So we had a lot of this like job queuing stuff going on with spreadsheets. But yeah,
bring these things together with different tools.
Right. So I would say clients ended up seeing like 2% of our product. And it just kind of like met them where they were with emails or other types of notifications. But everything else was kind of like happening behind the scenes.
And then can you give us, so you also similarly kind of came in with the Trojan horse of, there was a service being offered for your company, but also, you guys are creating projects and websites for people, but also you've got some kind of underlying technology that automates the process and does the project management. Can you give us a range of what people were paying you for just kind of the combined service and technology experience?
Yeah. So people would come to us and pay us anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000 for a web design project. And we would take 40% of that and the designers would get the rest.
Got it.
Yeah.
I didn't hear any 99-cent apps here. Just want to point that out. Okay, cool. Josh, we've got your screen back. So I know we're jumping. Hopefully you guys are able to follow, but I wanted to have folks show you real examples of things that they had built and were version 1s and early things.
Okay, so this is our newest Bubble index page, our front page for Groove Coders. And once they click on the create Then we have this series of inputs that they can put. So all of this where I have my mouse moving is hidden. And so they learn terms, and it's a mix of musical terms, production terms, and some basic computer science terms. And so it's an educational thing. And so as they learn, they get a drop down, they can choose their tempo. Then they choose a type of musical phrase. They can choose from hip hop or soul or rap or rock or gospel, whatever that is. And then they choose a rhythm. And then it gives this series of grooves, which we've created. But it allows them to learn how to create songs. And so they write songs to it. And then we have, I'll move forward of how that connects them to the other part where they can learn and explore and collaborate. So that's the lessons portion. So they go to this part and they can learn those terms, how to do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Next, they can collaborate with others. So if you have someone in Philly, there are projects that they can work on. They can upload their documents or their session files. They can have projects that they work on collaboratively, because a lot of the kids, they want to learn about how to like book a tour or how to do a tour, how to make money as musicians. And then we even have like an hours simulation here where they can submit the hours that they worked on it. So there's project management, there's creating and arranging music. And then there's a community part here where they share their experiences. And from the community where they share their experiences, they get a chance to, make like a blog post and upload images and things of that nature. So it's very interactive. And the purpose for that is we wanted people to interact, not just in the learning part, but we wanted them to be able to share their music. And one of the cool things we do is we have music industry people, like we have some Grammy and Billboard artists who we've worked with and we're friends with, and they give feedback to the kids, and the kids get to interact with them when a lot of times they wouldn't have a chance to meet some of these people. So it's a really cool way to bring what we call bringing the industry to them. And so we've had a lot of kids get scholarships from our program and go on to do great things with their music. So this is going to be an awesome tool. I'm really excited about what we're able to do with this second version, because the first version was more demonstration, video, teaching, slideshows. But now this is getting the kids to engage and pulling it away from that instructor that's in front of them and putting it in the hands of the student.
Very cool. Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna have one more question for you guys. And the question is, have any of you guys tried to let your users determine the price that they want to pay? Like, for example, I don't know if you guys have seen this on Wikipedia, where they've got the pay us what you want kind of thing. How do you feel about that? What do you think about that? How do you feel about all that?
I've done it. That's part of what helped us because the request came from the type of people we were working with. So we were asking, what kind of budgets are reasonable? Because, you're dealing with community centers and schools and private institutions. And so we always ask, what is reasonable as we've been building, and so that has helped us, I think, had success in the early stages, because they would tell us this is on average what we can work with. And so once we got a good pricing menu, then we went to a bunch of other people and said, all right, here's the range. And like, oh, we can do that. So that helped us a lot by really just listening to what people, just understanding where people are, because someone might want your product, but if they can't afford it, it's not that they might like it a lot, but if they can't afford it, or if it's just not going to work, then, we'll lose out. And I plan on staying in business. So.
So you use that as a tactic early on to figure out what your pricing should be. Do you continue then to ask people, every time you go into a meeting with new school, kind of give us a range of what you can pay?
Definitely. Well, for example, some of them are like, and I don't want to, it's all about focus. So we do business with other types of people, but I'm talking about our primary clients. And so with our primary clients, we ask them all the time. And I have this unspoken rule, I just don't say no to money. I don't. So I find a way if we can water down something that we're doing, but until we're at a place where I can just throw money out the window, I don't see that happening. We find a way to work with them and work with their pricing, and that's just me. But I know everybody doesn't go by that business model.
Got it. Brittany, I see you like jumping, ready to answer this.
On the other side of the spectrum, absolutely not. Because I'm enterprise, and I know these are like multi-billion-dollar companies. I know they have money, and because I'm in the industry, like I know what they spend on other technologies. I know what they spend on the people doing this, and so even I'm lowballing at the beginning, I'm going in and saying this is our price. And so far, they've been all over it. I sent a proposal like the same day. They're like, "Oh, this is great. When can we start?" Probably because I'm a little low. But if you're an enterprise, I would say if you don't know what to price your product, look and see what companies are spending on similar products, or look and see what they're spending on payroll for people to do the work. So I would say that's kind of how I've been able to figure out the pricing, what I should do. But I'm definitely not letting them, pay their own price, because then it's not going to be enough for my lifestyle.
Brittany's about this life where you pay your own price. She said the price. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, so I've never done that before, where I have a customer determine the price. But there's like a lot of really good stuff out there. I was just looking up a first round review article that I love on this topic about figuring out like price as a part of figuring out your product, because like the price is part of the product. And one of the questions they say to ask in like a willingness to pay interview is ask people what is like prohibitively expensive, right? So like at what point will you think this is too expensive? And I think that's a really good way to get a range, is to get people to say the actual threshold at which they'll like scoff.
So what will you pay? Because they'll be like, I'll pay 5 cents. You instead ask them what would be too much to pay.
Yeah, exactly. And that can like help you get to, and so all the questions they say that I'll send the link out, but all the questions they talk about are like, ask them what an acceptable price is. And that should be like the floor, right? When someone says what is acceptable, and then ask what is like prohibitive. And that should be like the higher end of the range. So not just like, don't even ask what is like too little, just ask what's acceptable and ask what is unacceptable. And like, that should be kind of the range. So, I mean, there are people that like have PhDs in pricing strategy. So I'm not going to, like, I don't know enough about this to really speak to it. But I'll actually just send this link in the chat right now, because I know it was really helpful for me as I was navigating this.
Awesome. So thank you so much, guys. I know we're running low on time. I want to thank all of you guys for just being here, sharing your stories, sharing your first versions of your products, like all that good stuff. A lot of times people don't do that, right? We see the last version or we see the most recent thing, but we don't see the progress or the process or like hear the real numbers. So like, I really appreciate that you guys shared all of this stuff. We're going to close out the chat here. We have one last session closing out the end of the day. But if you guys want to join in the chat during the AMA as well in the next section, if people still have questions that they didn't get answered, maybe they can type them in and we can still talk to you guys as well.
Great.
Cool. All right.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
All right.